I used to think I had a pretty normal life. Married young, had a beautiful daughter, lived in the suburbs, the whole picture-perfect thing. I never imagined one silly decision would blow it all up. See, my husband and I took a DNA test for fun. No drama, no suspicions, just curiosity. But what started as a fun little couples activity ended up unraveling our entire marriage. And it all began like this. I met Josh when I was 24. He was a few years older, 29 at the time, and working as a project manager at a construction firm. I just started a new job at a marketing agency in town. We met the old-fashioned way, too, at a friend's barbecue. No apps, just beer, laughter, and way too much grilled corn. I remember he made me laugh right away, like real laugh, not the polite kind you give strangers. He was charming, but not in that slick, I thought, dash said dash this dash to dash every woman kind of way. He was goofy, a little shy, wore these awful flip-flops with cargo shorts, and somehow it worked. It felt real, comfortable. We started talking and didn't stop the entire night. He walked me to my car, didn't even ask for my number, just said, "If I'm lucky, I'll see you again." And 2 days later, he showed up to our mutual friend's birthday dinner, with flowers this time. From there, it moved fast, like fast. Within 6 months, we were living together. Mom said I was rushing it, but honestly, I just knew. We fit. We had the same values, same kind of humor, even the same guilty pleasure shows. We rewatched The Office together more times than I want to admit. Josh wasn't perfect, of course. He could be stubborn, and he snored like a tractor, but he made me feel safe. It was new for me. I dated guys before who kept me guessing. Where I stood, whether they were into me, what mood I'd get that day. Josh was consistent, present, steady. We got married a year later in a little garden ceremony. Nothing fancy, just 60 people, string lights, and my grandma's lemon cake recipe. I still remember the way he looked at me during our vows, like I was the only person in the world. A year after that, we had our daughter Ellie. Now, let me tell you, I wasn't one of those glowing pregnant women. I was sick every morning, my ankles swelled up like balloons, and I cried during a toothpaste commercial once. But Josh, he was a rock. He rubbed my back at 3 a.m., built the crib twice because the first one was too wobbly, and cried when Ellie was born. Real ugly, joyful tears. We settled into parenting like a team, changed diapers, did bath time, read bedtime stories. Ellie adored him, still does, honestly. Watching them together was my favorite thing. She has his dimples, his stubborn chin, even the way she furrows her brow when she's focused. A total mini Josh, or so I thought. For years, everything felt solid. It's not perfect, of course. There were arguments over chores, money, stress, occasional distance when we were both too tired to connect, but nothing serious. No cheating, no secrets. Or so I believed. Life was just life. We worked, we parented, we hosted barbecues in the summer, and watched cheesy movies in the winter. We had a little tradition. Every Sunday morning, pancakes and cartoons. Even when Ellie got older and pretended she was too cool for it, Josh always made his pancakes in the shape of initials. E for Ellie, M for me, and sometimes he'd sneak in a heart. I look back on those Sundays now with such a strange feeling. Like watching a movie you once loved, and then realizing the ending ruins everything. You see, at that time, I was blissfully unaware. I genuinely thought I had the full story. A good husband, a sweet child, a stable life. There were no cracks in the glass, ... Yet, if you'd asked me then what our future looked like, I would have said, we'll grow old together, we'll travel when we retire, complain about our backs, and taxes over coffee. I was wrong. The truth had already taken root, silently, like a weed growing underneath the floorboards. I just hadn't stepped on it yet. But I was about to, and all it took was a birthday gift. Funny how something so innocent could open a door to something so devastating. It started on Josh's 38th birthday. We were trying to keep things low-key that year. Ellie was in 2nd grade. We were both busy with work, and we agreed. No big parties, no big gifts. It's just dinner, cake, and a cozy night in. I still wanted to get him something, though, something thoughtful. So I bought us one of those couples' DNA kits. You know, the ancestry kind, the ones that help you trace your roots. Find out if you're part Viking or 3% Neanderthal. We joked about it before. Josh always said his family had some mystery heritage. He wanted to prove his grandma wrong about being 100% Irish. I figured it'd be a fun little adventure for us, something to laugh about together. I handed him the little wrapped box over dinner, and he lit up like a kid. "This is awesome," he said. "We can finally settle the German or Polish debate." We high-fived like nerds and decided to take the tests together that weekend. Spit in the tube, seal it up, mail it off. That was it. 10 minutes of our lives. Then we forgot about it. Weeks passed. We got back into the usual grind. School drop-offs, work deadlines, grocery runs, weekend soccer games. Life continued in its quiet, predictable rhythm, till one Saturday morning, I got an email notification. "Your DNA results are ready." I opened mine first, expecting some kind of chart with colorful pie slices, and I got it. Apparently I was 48% Italian, 20% Eastern European, 10% Middle Eastern, and the rest a blend of Northern European odds and ends. No big shocks. I screenshotted it and sent it to Josh with the caption, "Queen of Pasta confirmed." He didn't reply right away. That was odd. Hours later, he texted back, "I'm gonna check mine later. Super busy with work stuff." Work stuff? On a Saturday? Josh never worked weekends. That was always his sacred pajama day. Something felt ... off. That evening, I asked him again, "Did you check your results yet?" He shrugged. "Nah, didn't get around to it. It's probably the same old mutt mix, as always." He was brushing me off. I could tell. The next few days were weird. Josh got quiet. Not the brooding, dramatic kind. Just distant. It's like he was there physically, but not really with us. He kept his phone close, flinched every time it pinged. Ellie asked him to help with a school project, and he told her he was too tired. That wasn't like him. Not at all. One night I came downstairs to grab water and saw him sitting in the dark, phone in hand, just staring at the screen. When I asked what was wrong, he quickly locked it and forced a smile. "Nothing, babe. Just tired. It didn't sit right." A few days later, I remembered the DNA test had a feature where it could show family connections, like relatives in the system who'd also taken the test. Out of curiosity, I logged into Josh's account using our shared email. I just wanted to see what he was so spooked by. What I found wasn't what I expected, right at the top of the results page, in bold letters. "No genetic relationship found with child listed as Ellie last name." I stared at it, then reread it, then again, and again. No genetic relationship. What did that mean? My mind couldn't even wrap around it at first. I refreshed the page, closed it, opened it again. Same words. No genetic relationship. I sat there frozen, my whole body going cold. My stomach dropped like I'd just missed a step on a staircase, but for 10 whole floors. I pulled up my own profile. Ellie was listed under me, confirmed as a biological child. Then back to Josh's. Nothing. Not even a partial match. It didn't make sense. It had to be a mistake. A glitch. A mix-up. I Googled frantically. DNA test. Mistake with child. False negative parent results. Can 23andMe be wrong? Everything I read came back the same. The test is 99.999% accurate for identifying parent-child relationships. So either the test was wrong, or Josh wasn't Ellie's biological father. But that couldn't be. I never cheated on Josh, ever. I wasn't perfect, but I'd never betray him like that. My mind began spinning timelines, thinking back, wondering, was there a chance? Some tiny gap. And I remembered, right before Josh and I officially started dating, we'd taken a break. Not even a breakup. Just a few weeks where things had gotten messy. I had moved back home briefly after a huge fight. We weren't even sure if we were going to get back together. And during that time, there was someone. One night, a mistake. I never told Josh because it didn't seem like it mattered once we got back together. We weren't even technically together when it happened. I was sure, so sure, that Ellie was his. We never even questioned it. She was born almost exactly 9 months after Josh and I reconciled. But now? Now I couldn't ignore the possibility. That night I barely slept. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every memory of Ellie's birth, Josh holding her, me thinking, this is our family. My heart ached, not just from fear, but from guilt, shame, and still. I hadn't told him I'd seen the results, but I knew, and somehow, I was certain he knew too. I kept the secret for a week, 7 days of walking around with my chest on fire, my mouth dry, and my mind spinning every second I was awake. I went to work, packed Ellie's lunch, made dinner, even smiled through a parent-teacher conference, all while knowing my life was probably moments away from shattering. Josh didn't say anything either, but the tension between us thickened like humidity before a storm. He wouldn't meet my eyes, was barely eating, and when we went to bed, he started sleeping with his back to me, something he'd never done before. It felt like I was lying next to a ghost. I tried to tell myself he didn't know. Maybe he hadn't opened the results. Maybe he forgot. Maybe he was working a lot, and this was all just in my head. But then I'd remember that one phrase, no genetic relationship found. I'd feel sick all over again. The guilt was the worst part. It's not just the one-night stand, but the years of silence. The assumption. I never even considered that Ellie might not be Josh's. It was such a blur of reconciliation. Raw emotions moving back in together, planning a wedding. I shoved that night so far into the past I almost convinced myself it never happened. But now I had to face it. And I couldn't do it alone. I decided to call Amanda, my best friend since college, the one person who knew everything. She was there when I went through that messy break with Josh, and she was the only one I ever confessed that night to, even back then. We met at a cafe the next morning, and I didn't even say hello, just sat down and whispered, I think Josh isn't Ellie's dad. She blinked at me like I'd spoken in a different language. What? I explained. The DNA test, the match results, the one-night stand, everything. She just sat there, stunned. Then said, well, are you sure the other guy is the father? I shook my head. I mean, it could be Josh, but the test says otherwise. I didn't do anything since that one time. She was quiet for a long time. Then she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Mia, you need to know for sure. I have to do a test with Ellie. My heart sank. I'd hoped she wouldn't say that, because deep down, I knew she was right. I needed proof, not assumptions, not memories. Facts. That night, after Ellie went to bed, I pulled out my laptop and ordered another kit. This one for a parent-child match. I told myself it was just to be safe, that I wouldn't say anything to Josh until I knew for sure. The kit arrived 4 days later. It took everything in me to act normal around Ellie as I collected her sample. I told her it was for a fun ancestry game at school. She thought it was hilarious to spit in a tube. Are we going to find out I'm part unicorn? She joked. I smiled and told her maybe. Once I mailed it, the waiting started again. This time, it felt worse. The days stretched on forever. Every time my email dinged, I jumped. Every time Josh walked into the room, my stomach twisted. He still wasn't talking much. Ellie noticed. She asked if we were mad at each other. I lied and said we were just tired. Finally, the email came. Your results are ready. I locked myself in the bathroom and opened it, and there it was. Confirmed. Parent-child relationship detected. A match. Ellie was mine. No surprise there. But under the other biological parent section, nothing. No secondary match. No trace of Josh. It was undeniable now. Josh wasn't Ellie's biological father. The silence in that moment was deafening. I sat on the cold tile floor, gripping my phone, gasping like someone had just knocked the wind out of me. There was no room left for denial. It's no glitches. It's no maybes. Only the truth. The next few hours were a blur. I walked through the house like I was floating. Every picture of Josh holding Ellie suddenly felt like a lie. Every bedtime story, every birthday party, every Father's Day card she made in glitter and glue, all of it took on a strange, sharp edge. But the worst part, I had to tell him. I had to look the man I loved in the eyes and tell him he wasn't the biological father of the child he had raised for nearly 8 years, and I had waited too long already. That night, after Ellie went to bed, I sat Josh down in the living room.
Ow.
He was on the couch, phone in hand, barely looking at me. The distance between us felt like a canyon. I said softly, I need to tell you something. He didn't look up, I continued. I got the results from Ellie's test. I wanted to be sure. Now he looked up. I'm so sorry, Josh. He just stared. I didn't know. I swear to you. That night, before we got back together, there was someone else. Just once, I didn't think Ellie could be his. The timeline was so close, and we never questioned it. I never even imagined. Josh didn't say a word. I ordered the test to clear my head, but the results are what you already saw. You did see them, right? Still nothing. Just a slow, almost imperceptible nod. I felt like I was drowning in the silence. Then finally he said, voice low and hollow, I saw it 2 weeks ago. I blinked. Why didn't you say anything? His jaw clenched. Because I wanted you to. I wanted to see if you would. That hit like a slap. He stood up, walked to the window, and said, I've been raising her, Mia. Loving her. Believing she was mine. Every second of every day, she was mine. She is yours, I whispered. Maybe not biologically, but that's not something you get to decide, he snapped, his voice cracking. The weight of his pain was unbearable, and I knew. Things would never be the same again. Josh didn't sleep in our bed that night. After our conversation, if you can even call it that, he grabbed a blanket and headed for the couch. No yelling, no slamming doors. Just silence, and the sound of him quietly setting a pillow down. The absence of his body next to mine was louder than any fight we could have had. I laid there all night, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding with guilt, shame, fear. And one thought kept ringing in my head. This is my fault. Not because I meant to lie. I didn't, but I did. Through omission, I buried something inconvenient, messy, something I convinced myself didn't matter. But DNA doesn't care about what's convenient. It tells the truth whether you're ready or not. By morning, the atmosphere in the house was so tense, it felt like you could slice it with a butter knife. Josh avoided me. He didn't say good morning. He didn't eat breakfast. He didn't even look at me. But the worst part? He didn't look at Ellie either. That broke me. She came down in her little fuzzy robe, hair messy, clutching her stuffed koala, and said, Daddy, can we watch cartoons? And he just mumbled something about needing to run errands. No hug, no smile, just gone. I knew I couldn't let it fester. Whatever came next, I had to face it. Fully, I owed him that much. That evening, I sat him down again. This time, I made sure Ellie was at a friend's house. Sat across from me. Not angry, just tired. Like a balloon that had slowly deflated. I need to tell you everything, I began. Not just about the test, about that night, about how we got here. I laid it all out. No sugarcoating. I told him about the fight we had before the break, how broken I felt. How a friend of a friend offered me comfort that night, and I let it happen. I told him I never followed up. Never thought I had to. I truly believed Ellie was his. I wasn't trying to hide a child. I wasn't calculating. I was just scared. And once we moved forward, I didn't know how to go back. Josh sat with his hands folded, jaw tight. When I finished, I asked the question that had been haunting me for days. Do you still want to be her father? He didn't answer right away. He stood up, walked to the mantel where a photo of Ellie sat in a handmade popsicle stick frame. She was missing a front tooth in it, beaming with a purple butterfly painted on her cheek. His arm was around her. He picked it up and stared at it for a long time. Then he said something that stopped my heart cold. I don't know who I am anymore. I wanted to cry, scream, fix it somehow. But there was nothing to fix. I couldn't take back the truth. He looked at me. I look at her, and I see my entire world. But now I also see him. A man I don't know. A man you never told me about. How do I process that? There it was. The grief, the betrayal, the mourning. Not just of a lie, but of a role he thought was his by birthright. Josh had become a father to Ellie, not because DNA told him to, but because he chose her every day. But now that choice felt stolen. The next day he packed a bag and left. No drama, no threats, just a quiet, broken goodbye. He said he needed space. Time. He didn't know if he could be around either of us without falling apart. I told Ellie Daddy was going on a work trip. She cried anyway. He didn't even say goodbye. She sobbed into my chest. I held her and lied. He just had to leave fast. He'll call you soon. That call didn't come for another 4 days. When it finally did, Josh asked to speak to her. He tried to sound cheerful, asked her about school, told her he missed her, promised to come to her soccer game next weekend. And Ellie, bless her, smiled like nothing ever happened. Afterward, I asked if he wanted to talk. He said, not yet. So I waited. 2 weeks passed, then 3. He'd check in here and there, drop off groceries, sit with Ellie in the driveway, and talk about cartoons and math homework. But he barely spoke to me. I became invisible. One afternoon, I finally broke. I met him outside as he was getting into his car and said, please, Josh, talk to me. Yell at me if you need to. Just don't keep shutting me out. He looked exhausted and sad. So sad. He leaned on the car and said quietly, you want the truth? I don't know if I'll ever see you the same way again. But I also don't know if I can walk away from Ellie. I don't want you to, I whispered. She loves you. She is yours. He shook his head. Not mine, Mia. Not in the way I thought she was. That changes everything. But not everything, I said. He didn't reply. That night, he emailed me. Not texted. Emailed. A full letter, it said. Asterisk Mia, you shattered something in me I didn't know could break. I built my entire identity around being her father, our little family, and now I don't know what I am. But I'm not going to abandon her. I love her too much, but you and I don't know. I can't promise anything right now. I need time and maybe therapy. Maybe both of us do. I'm not going to disappear. I'll be here for Ellie. But I need space to figure out who I am without the lie. Josh asterisk. I read it 10 times. Each time my chest ached in a different way. And yet, I was grateful. Grateful he hadn't walked out on her. Grateful he still cared enough to explain. Grateful he wasn't cruel, just honest. And that honesty. It was more painful than anger. But it was the beginning of something real. No more secrets, no more pretending, just truth. Raw and unforgiving, but also necessary. I thought the DNA test would be the hardest part, but no, it was the days after, the conversations that truly unraveled me. Once the truth was out, there was no more pretending. There's no hiding in routine. Our lives split into 2 separate awkward orbits. Josh officially moved out a month after the reveal. He got a small apartment on the other side of town, said he needed to rebuild on his own terms. He didn't say separation, didn't say divorce. He just said space. I gave it to him. Ellie asked every night when Daddy was coming back. I told her the truth in pieces. I said Mom and Dad were figuring out some grown-up stuff, that we loved her very much. She didn't do anything wrong. She nodded, but she knew something big had changed. Kids always know. Josh came by twice a week, sometimes more. We took her for ice cream, the park, school pickup. He was still present, never wavered. But with me, he was distant, civil, cordial, but distant. Until one day he wasn't. It was a Sunday. Ellie had a soccer game, and Josh and I ended up sitting side by side in the bleachers. We hadn't spoken in more than 2 words all week. Suddenly, out of nowhere, he said, I've been thinking about the guy, the one from back then. My stomach turned to stone. I nodded slowly. Okay. He looked at the field, not at me. Do you know who he is? Where he is? I hesitated, then nodded. I looked him up. He still lives in the city. Got married. No kids, as far as I know. Josh was quiet for a long time. Then he said something I didn't expect. I think I need to meet him. I blinked. Why? He finally turned to me. Because part of me can't move on unless I know who I've been standing in for. My throat tightened. You're not a stand-in, Josh. He smiled sadly. Yeah, but I still need to see him, even if just once. I didn't fight it. I gave him the guy's name. His first name was Mark. The only time I ever said it out loud to Josh. A week later, Josh messaged me. I met Mark. My heart stopped. How did it go? I typed. No answer that day. He finally called that night. I just wanted to hear what kind of man he was, Josh said. I didn't tell him about Ellie, just said I was someone from your past. He was ... decent, polite, married. Didn't even remember the night clearly. I didn't know what to say to that. I hated him for not remembering, Josh said quietly. For you, It was life-changing. For him, it was a forgettable night. It cut deep. He continued. But at the same time, I realized something. Night doesn't define me, or Ellie, or even our family. Pause. I'm still her father, Mia. Maybe not by blood, but in every other way I am. Tears flooded my eyes. But you and me, said gently, we're still broken. That was the hardest truth yet. I nodded through tears, even though he couldn't see me. I understand, I whispered. A few days later, Josh suggested we try family therapy. For Ellie's sake, he said, but I knew it was for us too. To figure out if there was anything left to rebuild, we went. It was awkward at first. We sat in stiff chairs, unsure where to look. The therapist, a kind woman in her 50s, asked questions neither of us had the answers to. But slowly, walls cracked. Josh said things I never thought he'd admit. I resented her for a while, he said in one session. Not Ellie, her existence, what she represented, the lie, the pain. But then I'd hear her laugh or see her cry over a broken toy and it would hit me. I'm her dad. I raised her. I taught her how to ride a bike. I cleaned her puke at 3 a.m. I'm not just a placeholder. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. I just wish I'd been told the truth sooner. I cried too. So do I. We were broken. Yes, but not irreparably. Over time, we rebuilt something. Not a perfect marriage, but an honest relationship. We began co-parenting with Grace. Then cautiously, tenderly, started spending more time together. Dinner as a family. Movie nights. Saturday morning pancakes again, like old times. Though now, the initials on the pancakes meant something more. Not Mom, Dad, Ellie, but mistakes, acceptance, love. I finally told Ellie the full truth. Not all at once, but in pieces she could handle. That families are made in more ways than one. That love matters more than biology. That sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, but those mistakes don't change how deeply we love her. She was quiet for a long time. Then she asked the one question I dreaded. Is Daddy still my real dad? I looked her in the eyes, heart pounding. No, baby, I said gently. He's not your biological dad, but he is your real dad, because he chose you, and he never stopped. She nodded slowly. And that was it. Children are so much more resilient than we give them credit for. Now, a year later, we're in a different place. Josh still has his apartment, but he spends more nights at our place than not. We don't call it being back together. We just say we're working on being a family. However that looks. We still go to therapy. We still have hard days. But we also have good days. Laughter, board games, hugs that last too long. When in those moments, I remember something. Truth can destroy. But sometimes, if you face it head on, it can also rebuild. Not what was, but what's real. It's been almost 2 years since the DNA test. 2 years since my world cracked open with a line of text that changed everything. Sometimes I still wake up with that ache in my chest, that tight squeeze of regret just under my ribs. I think back to how casually it all began. A silly gift, a tube of spit, an impulse decision meant to be fun. And yet, it forced us to look at the truth. No more pretending, no more blind spots, just raw, brutal honesty. I've had time to think about a lot since then, about lies of omission, about the stories we tell ourselves to avoid discomfort, about how we sometimes bury things not to be cruel, but because we don't know what else to do. I don't blame the DNA test anymore. That test didn't break us. Silence did. I see that now. And maybe, deep down, part of me wanted the truth to surface. Maybe that's why I didn't hesitate to buy the kit. Maybe I needed to know, to face what I'd been avoiding for years, and when it all came out, it broke us. But only for a while. Because Josh, as angry, heartbroken, and betrayed as he was, never turned away from Ellie. Not once. He never let her feel the consequences of a choice she had no part in. Could have walked away. He didn't. And that changed everything. He still lives in his apartment. We still co-parent. We still go to therapy, separately, and sometimes together. We're not fixed. And honestly, I don't think we ever will be in the way we once imagined. But we're real now, honest, stripped of illusion. And in that honesty, we found something new. Not the fairy tale, but something better, something true. The other man, Mark, still doesn't know. I've debated 100 times whether to tell him, whether he has a right to know, whether Ellie has a right to know him. For now, I've chosen not to. Not because I want to protect him, but because I want to protect Ellie. She has one father. The one who kissed her boo-boos, showed up to every recital, and never made her feel less than. Introducing a stranger into that picture might only complicate what she already understands as love. Maybe one day, when she's older and truly asks, I'll tell her more, and we'll cross that bridge together. But for now, okay, she's healthy. She's loved. That's what matters. One moment that stands out, something I'll never forget, happened on a random Tuesday night. Ellie had just finished a school project on family trees. She showed it to Josh and me with pride. Little construction paper branches with names glued onto them. Me, Josh, Grandma, cousins, even our dog, Peanut. Josh looked it over and said, "Where's your biological father on here?" Ellie tilted her head and said, "What do you mean?" "That's you." He blinked, clearly caught off guard. "I meant, like, your DNA dad." She shrugged. "I don't care about that guy. You're my real dad. I don't need to." Josh smiled, and I watched his eyes mist over just slightly. He nodded and said, "Okay, just checking." I think that moment healed something in him, something I couldn't reach, but she could. Children have a way of cutting through all our messy adult complications. They go straight to the heart of things. Josh didn't need a test to be her father. He just had to love her, and he did, still does. So where does that leave us now? We're redefining love, day by day. Sometimes it looks like movie nights on the couch. Sometimes it looks like joint parent-teacher meetings. Sometimes it's just a text. "Hey, how's your day?" That reminds us we're still a team, not romantic, not perfect, but partners. And as for me, I've learned that love isn't about having all the answers. It's about showing up when it's hard, owning your mistakes. It's staying at the table when everything in you wants to run. I've learned that DNA might tell you who someone is, but not what they mean to you. I've learned that sometimes truth doesn't destroy a family, it defines it. And finally, I've learned to forgive myself. That one took the longest, because when you break something, even accidentally, the shame can be unbearable. But shame keeps you stuck in the past, and I couldn't stay stuck. Not for Ellie, not for Josh, and not for me. We moved forward, not away from the truth, but with it. Hand in hand, together. And yes, some nights I still lie awake thinking about what might have been. The alternate version of our lives, where the timeline had been different, where I'd been honest sooner, where Josh and I hadn't been cracked by a test result. But then, I remember this. Sometimes cracks let the light in. And when I look at Ellie, her bright eyes, her crooked smile, the way she hums when she's focused, I see all of it. The pain, the growth, the truth, and the love. So no, this isn't the story I would have written for us, but it's the one that made us real, and that's enough. Now, I look at my daughter, and I see only love. Not the man who shares her DNA, but the father who chose her every single day.